All right. This is If My People Bible Reading Part 246, and this is probably going to run into If My People Bible Reading Part 247 because I added in some slides. People wanted me to put pictures in to describe what I was talking about because they were sort of unaware of some of the words that are being used. So this is basically two parts, 246 and 247. Are you ready? This is going to be interesting. If I had to make this for a living, I'd be starving to death. Yeah, in the last days, only a remnant are going to come out. Come out of her, my people. Come out. And they're not talking about coming out of the pagan world. They're talking about coming out of those crazy churches out there, crazy synagogues, and crazy, some of them, crazy Hebrew roots. Ugh. They're split into so many sections, so many pieces today. The question is, should we copy what is commonly to modern day Judaism and call it Yah? There's a lot of that going on. So, the Torah is central to Jewish religious worship, or is it? It's really interesting what you're about to hear. I pulled this straight from the research. I didn't Google it. I went through research and went to straight to people, straight to their books, straight to their writings. And this is what they said. The Torah plays a powerful role in Jewish tradition. It is central in all religious worship, which requires the reading of sections of the Torah in sometimes public settings, but most frequently in synagogues or home study groups. According to legend, the reading of the Torah in public was first begun around the time of Ezra, the scribe, in the 6th century BC, following the Babylonian captivity. Ezra himself, believed to be a descendant of the last high priest of the first temple of Jerusalem, therefore transformed the practice into a ritual. Ezra himself also supposedly enforced the idea of utilizing the Torah as a central focus of religious worship, and the word religious was then added in, following Jewish captivity. In other words, we don't have a religion. We hear and obey the Lord. It's not a religion. It's a way of life. Ooh. About the weekly Torah portion. From ancient times, there has been a weekly Torah portion, a parashah, from the first 5 books of Moses, the Torah, and ending in Haftarah. From the prophets read on the Shabbat in synagogues around the world. Today, those who left the institutionalized church businesses call themselves charismatics. Some Hebrew roots, a lot of messianics, and so on, use the weekly Torah portions as a guide in their gatherings. Is this okay? No. Yeshua is the living word and therefore author and creator of all Torah. All Torah. That means there's more Torah in the new covenant than in the old. Folks, catch the drift. Torah means basically instruction from the Father. He was clearly revealed walking and talking to Adam and Eve because no one has ever seen Abba Father. Adam and Eve never saw Abba Father. They saw Yeshua. Yeshua gave Torah command to hear and obey, to tend the Garden of Eden, to not consume the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which his Father created, by the way. Yeah, try to find it anywhere in the word that Satan invented the tree. Which, by the way, unfortunately, a bunch of people have said, oh, that's today's Google and the internet. Yeshua told, the patriarchs, let's do this. Yeshua also told Adam and Eve to be fruitful, to multiply. That's a Torah command. But as time went on, sin continued to increase. The patriarchs up to Moses followed royal Torah and did make offerings to Yahweh at the times identified as the 3 harvest times. These times are now recognized as the barley harvest, the wheat harvest, and in the fall of the year, the final harvest. All fruits of the earth are gathered in. Does that sound familiar to end times? I'm just telling you. But sin continued to sweep in, so even more people of the Exodus time all said that they would hear and obey the word. And they became engaged for marriage at the base of Mount Sinai and had a supper to seal the agreement. And they sinned sorely with the golden calf and thus were divorced. Exodus 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 4, all the way to 30, right? The added in laws commonly understood by Christians, and still is, and Jews alike as Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible were then written by Moses and others. And then we have all those books that were written, right? Right. Were they meant to be followed so we can all go to heaven? What did the Father say? No. They were meant to testify against them. Interesting. Yah himself said that these laws cannot be followed, and no man could obey them, and death of the soul will then follow. Only Yeshua, who came as a man on this earth in the first advent, did not sin. And while he was ministering in the land of Israel, he continued to give Torah, old and new, which is found in the New Covenant of the Bible. The Old Covenant covers somewhere around 613 commands. I don't think we'll argue too much about that. Hard to find, though, aren't they? The ones in the New Covenant, very easy to find. Some were very harsh in the Old Covenant, and some of them were very hard to follow in the New Covenant, like don't even think of murdering someone, don't even think of hating someone, don't even think of sinning. Some very harsh and totally ignored by the mainstream Christianity today in the name it and claim it ministries, the businesses, and excused out by many in Hebrew roots, unfortunately. They just excuse all that out. Most people in Hebrew roots have no idea about the 1,050 commands. Did you know that? Most in Hebrew roots who think they know more than Christians do, the sheep, have no clue of the 1,050 commands. Wow. Orthodox Judaism does not even use the Bible at all, and instead uses myths, traditions of men, false doxologies, Kabbalah, sorcery, and never-ending rabbinic Talmud. I follow my rabbi, and my rabbi says. There, to get you in trouble. Thus, we now have 30,000 different Christian church names, 20 to 30 different Hebrew roots, and who all follow their own style. Most in Hebrew roots that I've talked to, and I've just begged them, do you have a doctrine? All you hear is crickets. Well, no. It's the doctrine's not given in the Old Covenant. We follow Torah. They use the word Torah like it's just a word, daily word. Do they even know? Do many of them know what that means? And now we have dozens and hundreds of Jewish synagogues who follow their rabbi, and they follow it over the living word, the Bible, the entire Bible. And most of them, friends of mine that I've known through all the years, have never even opened a Bible. Call themselves rabbis, call themselves practicing Jews, have never opened a Bible. Okay, where does it end? And how do those who hear and obey come out of her, my people? So what do I say? I say, stop. Stop the use of only the Torah books, commonly called the first 5 books of the Bible. There are 1,050 Torah commands clearly given in the New Covenant. Why aren't you reading them the same as you would the Old in your weekly portions? Answer that question. If you don't find them, email me at graftedin8, that's grafted, I-N with the actual number 8, graftedin8 at yahoo.com. Okay? And I will email them to you. No cost. I don't charge anything. Those 1,050 Torah commands are newer and better Torah as quoted directly in the Word. So you don't read that in Torah portions, the ones that the Jewish people give you, do you? Yeah, it's kind of conveniently left out. So why ignore those commands and continue to read out the Jewish Messianic weekly portions? Those people who created the weekly Torah portion deny Jesus Christ, Yeshua. They deny him. How can anyone who calls himself a Christian, a saved Yah-fearing believer who hears and obeys Yah, not apply the entire word when they gather? How? Today, the most prolific and obvious so-called religious groups who deny Yeshua and continue the same behavior against Yah that Yeshua had put up with when he visited the temple in Jerusalem are now called an example. This is just an example, not picking on them. Hasidics, primarily coming from Eastern Europe, Ukrainians, including Germany, and their forefathers coming out of the Holocaust. They now live in New York City, most of them, the East Side, and are closely connected to each other. They have their own community and basically ignore the entire world unless making a buck is somehow involved. Some, not many, also live in Israel. Their rabbi are many and different from each other. The Bible is basically ignored, and they are more into mystics and personal rabbi followings. And so those today who continue to deny, how much time have I got? I got time. Who continue to deny Jesus Christ, Yeshua, are the very ones who many in Hebrew roots, Christian roots, whatever you want to call them, flock to these rabbi instructions commonly called Jewish weekly portions or Hebrew weekly portions, and read and study the Old Testament in their weekly Shabbats and appointed times. It's like unbelievable. It's taking a book that the Father gave you and reading half of it. Wow. There is much to consider since false, intentional traditions of men are gladly received by these Christian organizations and Hebrew roots, many of them, who think they're doing the right thing. Wrong. Yeshua says to rightfully divide the word, to hear and obey what he says, and not add or subtract from it. The entire Bible is to be read and to pay attention to the newer and better Torah, clearly written in the New Covenant, the New Testament. I think I could do this in one. Let's just give it a try. Try it in one. Here we go. You're going to find this interesting. Okay. Let's just go with the slideshow. All right, just take a look at these. If you wear kippahs, kiffahs, whatever you want to call it, stremels, you know, those large fuzzy hats, peyos, you know, the long curls that Hasidic Jews proudly wear. If you read Talmud and think you know what to pull out and what not to pull out, and if you follow the strong will of Jews who live and breathe Kabbalah, and if you continue to read Jewish weekly portions and ignore the 1,050 incredible Torah in the New Covenant. By the way, there are so-called Hebrew roots who read altered, added-in Jewish weekly portions that contain just a few New Testament readings. Ooh, that makes a difference, doesn't it? No, that is just plain stupid, folks. Anyway, grabbing onto the Star of David as a holy Kadosh symbols. The Star of David. Oh, that's holy, isn't it? No, it's made up. It's Babylonian. It's pagan. It's not approved by King David or Solomon. Shlomo, then you were getting yourself into a dark hole. We are to make the tribe of Judah, jealous in the last days so that they will then repent and cling to the salvation we all identify as Yeshua. Look at this stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? This is done by so many people out there. I'm not talking about the Christian churches. They're clueless. They're watching this going, what? They have no idea. I worked criminal investigations for years. I see this as a crime. And I see the great white throne judgment as a judgment seat in a court of the almighty law, almighty Torah. And the newer, and Yahweh's going to say to those who think they know so much, do you know my new covenant? Have you met my new covenant? By the way, his name is Yeshua, and he also put out the newer and better one. Do you know it as much as you do your weekly Torah portions? How are you going to answer that? If you wear things or say things or read things that are not found in the Word, you are doing nothing more than insulting them. They know they are false. They know you are false because they know already that the kippahs, the tzitzis without the white strings are all false stuff. It's all false stuff. They know you are exactly and totally ignorant in the Word. Don't be ignorant. Please pay attention. Give me a respond any way you want. I would love to talk with you. Shalom.